Hi everyone, welcome back to another character video. This week I'm going to be talking about my character Arthena Condravian, who is one of the point of view characters in my fantasy series A Chronicle of Crowns. Because basically when you write a novel, that's all you ever want to talk about again. So last week we talked about my character Howell Pendingale, and I mentioned that he was an older character of mine. As I've mentioned in videos before, when I was like 14 or something, I tried to write this fantasy series, and it was like total crap, and it was basically just a ripoff of The Lord of the Rings. But a couple of those characters that I had from there I really liked, and I migrated them over to this series, and Howell was one of them. And Arthena is actually another one of those characters. She started off way back when I was 14, and I was obsessed with ancient Egyptian and Roman culture, and she was kind of an idealized version of Cleopatra. I used to love everything about Cleopatra. I used to read all these different books and history texts about her. She was one of my favorite historical figures. I just really liked her, I don't even know why. So at the beginning of the story, Arthena is the heir to the Half Moon Empire. And the Half Moon Empire is one of the oldest human civilizations that has been around for thousands of years. It's been ruled by emperors and empresses in sort of a tiered system of governors and commoners and slaves that kind of go under it. And it's a very complex tier. Their culture was loosely based off of Egyptian culture. They do believe in a pantheon of different gods and have different priests and different sects that worship these different gods. The Condravian family, which Arthena is the heir to, have controlled the Half Moon Empire for nearly 1,000 years. They originally started to control the empire due to their ability to train and domesticate drakes. And in my story, drakes are just a smaller version of a dragon. But that was thousands of years ago, and since then, a lot of the drakes and the dragons have gone extinct. Sometime in the past, there was an uprising against domesticating drakes. Different countries decided to get together and kill them off because they were a danger not only to society, but to humans alike. But at the beginning of the book, when we first meet Arthena, she's kind of talking about the state of the Half Moon Empire and how it's sort of fallen into disrepair. The economy of the Half Moon Empire has always sort of been based around slave labor, and a lot of the city-states that the Empire has been trading with are starting to free their slaves and are no longer using slave labor. So the whole economy of the Half Moon Empire is threatening to crumble in on itself. Not to mention, Arthena's father is really old and dying. His weakness has kind of seeped into the Empire itself. There's also a really devastating famine that's been happening in the Half Moon Empire. Basically, they built it in a horrible spot. Half of it is on marsh, the other half is in wastelands, and there's a really small area of agricultural and arable land. And that little area is not enough to sustain the growing population of the Half Moon Empire. And there's also been a drought that hasn't made things any easier. So Arthena, who kind of notices that her father is sick, is trying to secure her place as the heir of the Half Moon Empire and try to right some of the wrongs and make the empire great as it once was. But she has a lot of enemies who don't really want her to become the new empress of the Half Moon Empire. And one of the big ones is her stepmother. The way families work in the Half Moon Empire, it's kind of interesting because whoever the leader is, whether they're female or male, they're allowed to take 3 husbands or wives, who are the first, second, and the third wife. And then they're allowed to have a harem underneath of basically just women or men who do whatever they want. But the ranking of these wives is really based on family houses and influence within the empire. And even if the second or the third wife has a child before the first, the heir to the throne still goes to the first. So Arthena does have a half-brother, Tyzo, who is older than her. So a lot of the Empire is sort of rooting for Tyzo to become the heir, especially because his mother's family, a very important family to the economic structure of the Southern Empire. See this little struggle between her and her stepmother, and her trying to secure her place as Empress. Arthena is actually one of my favorite characters to write because she's a really gray area character. A lot of the characters that I've talked about so far, Benjamin, Dormel, and Howell, they're very sort of morally righteous and honorable characters. They have their little problems and their little secrets, but for the most part, they're very honorable, they have a good set of morals, and Arthena just isn't quite like that. She'll do anything to get her way. She's very selfish, but she's also very loyal and a very strong female independent character. She starts off the novel really knowing who she is and what she's capable of, And I think that's really good for my characters, because a lot of the characters that I have are kind of learning and progressing as they go about, but she knows what she wants, she knows how to get what she wants, and it's something that she's discovered a long time ago about herself. So if you're curious to see what happens to Arthena, if she ends up securing her birthright or if something happens that takes that away from her, make sure to get your copy of A Chronicle of Crowns, which is out on Amazon. Also head over to lulu.com and get your hands on Transcendence, which was my first photography and poetry series. As always, I'll post the links to my social media accounts below and you can check them out there. You can keep in touch with me with things that are coming up each week and highlights from last week by signing up for my newsletter, and you can find that newsletter on my Facebook pages or on my website. Also make sure to head over to my website, the link will be below. Every Friday I'm doing this new series, this new blog series called Artist to Artist, which are interviews with photographers to painters to writers to poets, makeup artists, you know, everything. And today I'm actually featuring Julia Nichols, who is a photographer based out of Peterborough, Ontario, and you definitely want to check her stuff out because it's really good. And yeah, that's about it. I'll see y'all next week. And if you can hear that chewing sound, that's because Boone is currently chewing on a bone as loudly as he can. Boone, stop!